This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome, everybody, to the very first Pibroch Network webinar. It's a great pleasure to have you here tonight. And the Pibroch Network is very new and in that sort of soft phase of just blinking, looking around, looking forward to what's ahead with lots of ideas. And this is an opportunity to share our ideas with you, a sort of first kind friends and colleagues who've come along to this consultation. But we're going to begin by introducing members of the team, those of us who are here, with apologies from Jamie Green, who's in Los Angeles, and he is our web developer. He's done the most amazing work at rescuing the site after David Hester's death. And with apologies also from Josh Dixon, who will be with us shortly. But my name is Barnaby Brown, and I have brought these people together because I was David Hester's co-editor and supported him building out pibroch.com. He got in touch with me in May 2013 when I was a fresh young PhD student, and I'd just produced a concordance table tidying up what we had in terms of material evidence for Pibroch, and thought, oh, well, this could be a good basis for a website. So I sent it off to him with a few ideas. And my goodness, it was incredible. He just spun up a website in express time, and it was hair-raising, absolutely hair-raising. The next 5 years, the energy of that man. Okay, so I think it's appropriate actually to begin this meeting with a tribute to David Hester's energy. He was extraordinary. He came from an academic background. But he had tech competence, and my goodness, going into the website now and seeing what he did, it's giddying, and I do feel quite submerged. So things are slow as I upskill myself to be able to take over the reins. So I'm about to submit my PhD thesis, and I can hear David in one ear saying, "Get it in, get it in, get it in, Barnaby." So that's what I'm doing. And the website is a companion to the thesis. The two were sort of, they grew up together, they've developed together, and it's a great honor to be now taking the website forward in a way that can hopefully be there in perpetuity, in service to not just researchers, but everyone who's interested in Pibroch. Jimmy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, I'd be delighted to. I'm Jimmy Carnegie, and my role with Pibroch Network is to provide strategic and financial advice. I've got a background of 20 to 25 years working in business in the world of finance, risk management, internal audit, and I bring the skills I learned in that realm to the party. And so a lot of the work that's come out by way of vision, mission and values is something that I've been working very closely with Barnaby on. And as well as that, I now, as well as working with Barnaby on Pibroch Network, I teach bagpipes in Cambridge. I've been doing that for Cambridge, England. I've been doing that for 3 years. CambridgeBagpipes.com, and that's been a very interesting and relevant experience for me with respect to Pibroch Network. I compete on the class amateur circuit, and the rest of the time I am a stay-at-home dad, supporting my wife, who's a public health consultant, been very busy with COVID for the last 2 years.
Thank you, Jimmy. And I must say it's been very exciting for me to to work closely with Jimmy, who's taking Pibroch into schools and in putting it, beside people who are teaching bass guitar, clarinet, piano, violin, schools here in Cambridge, and giving it some presence. And so he has, both as a competitor, an amateur competitor, and as a Pibroch teacher, that different perspectives. And that's what I've tried to do, bringing together a team to take this website forward, a real different perspectives. And with that in mind, I'd like to ask Kate to introduce herself, our design lady.
Hello, so I'm Kate. I don't actually play the pipes at all, but my partner is a piper, a former piper, which is how I'm sort of tangentially related to the community. By day, I'm the head of brand at a small engineering practice, and by night, I'm a student of graphic design at Bournemouth University, Arts University Bournemouth, sorry. So I'm doing my master's project on Cantrack, which is how I ended up meeting Barnaby. His name kept popping up on all these interesting papers about patterns in Pibroch and things like that. So we got in touch and here we are now.
Thank you, Kate. Later on in this session, we are going to be having a little look at Kate's portfolio submission. It's been, again, really exciting to approach people from an artistic angle, and what people's experiences might be coming into a gallery, or going into a play park or hands-on. How much, what might actually happen when we have people who know nothing about Pibroch experiencing it in a museum. Now, I'm just going to pause the recording for a moment because I have Josh on the line here, and there may be a technical hitch, so please excuse me.
So as I mentioned, I'm focusing on Cantrack specifically in my master's project. This was sort of the first experiment I undertook where I screen printed the vocables to Glengarry's March over the sheet music from it. I'm really fascinated by the idea of this language to teach music and to represent music. So I think that's what's really hooked me. And also as a way in, as somebody who isn't especially musical and doesn't play the pipes, it feels like I can connect with the music in a different way that I wasn't able to without sort of a visual interpretation. So I've evolved this idea somewhat and playing now with the vocables from the end of the little bridge. So this is what it's sort of currently looking like. So trying to show a little bit more of the intensity change over the course of the tune, and the different, the colors are representing the pitch. So that kind of will start to give a sense of the tune when you look at them as a collection as well. So yes, these are just things I've been playing with, and then once I kind of get them refined, I'll make physical objects, screen printing this one most likely. I've also been looking at the different sort of rhythms available and sort of on display in these tunes. So this one is really looking at the emphasis and the rhythm of the notes. The little red dots represent the actual pitch relative to each other. And so this representation would look at sort of the threads through the tune, through the journey of the song, through different cycles, as well as the rhythm of it. But I really just can't stay away from those spirals. I really like the circular kind of motif. So this is just another one looking at that, journeys through the tune again. And then finally looking at arranging them like the bosses on a shield contained within the ground. So that's, yeah, those are just some mindful sketches. Nothing's physically created yet, but it's on its way, hopefully.
Thank you, Kate. What I'm doing right now is hopefully enabling everybody to see the 4 members of the team. So I'm just adding Josh to the spotlight. And if I add myself to the spotlight, could you put up your hand? Do you all see the four of us and Kate's artwork. Except, of course, I don't see all of you, so I don't know. Maybe.
Yes, we can see you, but we can see
Oh,
four.
thank you. Thank you. Super. And I just want to say that Kate's put an enormous amount. It's the way in which our team has come together. The collaboration here is visuals. You know, a website is a visual thing, and I was fascinated by the thought. Well, how can we make the website more beautiful? And if we're going into a place, a space, and there's going to be music, can we entice people who maybe aren't pipers and maybe know nothing about piping? So that was my delight when Kate got in touch with me, and I just thought, ooh, there's something interesting that could come here. So, and these spirals reminded me not just of a Taj, but of the cut mark stones at Kilmartin. So that's very, very, very old. I mean, thousands of years old. So thank you, Kate, for taking us on this little Pibroch journey. Would you like to end your screen share? And I'll introduce everybody to Josh. Thank you, Josh. It's very, very good to see you.
Thanks you very much. Yeah, I'm very sorry to be late to the game. There's the usual sort of connectivity troubles where I happen to be at the present, but thankfully I've managed to get here eventually. So thank you for everyone for coming, and it's great to be here.
So now that we're all together, I wonder whether the best thing to do might be just to sort of go back to why we've come together. This meeting is going to explain what the Pibroch network is and why it exists. We're going to have a look at our draft mission, vision, and values, and have a little discussion about that, inviting your thoughts. And then we're going to talk about what the next steps are going to be, and then open out for discussion, questions, comments, and we'll be looking forward to answering any thoughts you have. So we'll try and move through those fairly swiftly so that there's as much space as possible at the end for conversation. Okay. Josh, would you like to begin with a little, we've introduced ourselves, but you could maybe add a little introduction to yourself before moving in to what the Pibroch network is.
Yeah, great. So thanks very much, everybody. And I do know some of you. Some of you I've not yet met. So I'll look forward to that, meeting you in person in due course. But for me, at the moment, just to give a little introduction, I am the head of traditional music at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, which used to be called the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama. And I have been a piper for many years, and I've tried to bring that to my role at the Conservatoire for quite a while. And it's really only in the last, I would say, 7 years, I suppose now, in the current iteration of the traditional music degree at the Conservatoire, that I feel as if we've really come into our own as as making a significant inroad into higher education with regard to piping. We've had a BA degree in a piping offshoot in the BA degree for quite a while, really since about 2000. But it was in 2015 that we transformed our degree curriculum to the extent that we were able to offer a piping offshoot that took the strengths of what we had before and try to consolidate that and extend further resources, further partnership with the National Piping Centre, and to design a curriculum for piping that would really, I suppose, offer more of a holistic experience for pipers. Pibroch, light music, history, Countach, and everything in between. So, leading to what we have, where we are now, I suppose, to with regard to the Pibroch network. I suppose my introduction is a way of characterizing my perspective on it all, which is to do with education, to do with research, and to do with trying to develop further toolkits for both teaching and learning, and reaching out beyond the boundaries of Pibroch to, I suppose, build on the strengths of David Hester's co-creation with Barnaby up until David's untimely passing in 2019. So the Pibroch network, which of course is the new name for what was altpibroch.com, the Alt Pibroch Club, is currently going through phase 2 of its existence. Phase 1 was with Barnaby and David, of course. But since now Barnaby was at, I think it was July, since July of 2021, we were fortunate enough to get funding from the Royal Conservatoire via the Athenaeum Award. Not a huge amount, but enough to be able to start to put in place the building blocks and some of the rebranding, some of the discussions and the resources we need in order to try to build on David Hester's legacy and create something that's going to be a little bit more inclusive, but build on the, as I said, on the very real and very important strengths that Barnaby's and Hester's work has built up until 2019. So we have the website as it has been bequeathed to us in a sense. We have these subdomains, but we want to be able to, I suppose, use the website in order to reach both within the parameters, within the boundaries of Pibroch and its community, its performer community, composing community, teaching community, but also those beyond its boundaries, across performers, composers, researchers, and beyond. As Barnaby's very helpful graphic here describes, we're looking at a number of different communities that we want to reach out to, from school kids on up. We want to see Pibroch in the classroom, in the village hall and the concert hall, and everywhere in between. So, and of course we want to do that in partnership with, all the usual organizational or sectoral organizations, as well as those beyond its boundaries.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, no problem.
It was wonderful that when the website went down, Josh was one of the people who got in touch with me and said, "Help, what's happening?" Because he used it with his students, and I was so delighted because I thought it's a huge website. It contains hundreds of pages and thousands of manuscript images, and there are huge issues with the website. Huge usability issues. It doesn't hang together very well. It's very difficult to navigate. And so these, hopefully you can see the user groups that we identified as wanting to be able to use the website easily to access the images. And so the resources there. So that was one of the first things we did in this phase 2, identify those 7 categories of user.
We also went, we tried to go to as many potential partners or existing partners as possible in order to provide, to start this consultation process. So this is the latest iteration of our consultation, but we've spoken in depth with organizations like the Pibroch Society, the Competing Pipers Association, the Big Music Society, Tupper and Dulcish, Kister Riches, and others, National Library of Scotland. So the list goes on. We've been consulting for some time now, and we'll continue to do.
And I'd say, you know, most importantly of all, our first engagement was with the Pibroch Society, because the Pibroch Society has the site that is most similar. And I think it's an important part of our history. In fact, Pibroch.net, the domain we're using, I registered it in January 2000 when I was living on the Isle of Skye. And that was shortly after having had intensive discussions with John Dow and Andrew Wright, then president of the Pibroch Society, over how to get the manuscripts online. So the discussion, the impetus to get the Pibroch source material online actually goes back to 1995, and it's good to see the growth of these websites in that historical context, because it was in 1997 that William Donaldson first got the Campbell Counterach online, and then the Pibroch Society, John Dow and Andrew Wright, we had a meeting together to think, well, wait a minute, surely these should be on the Pibroch Society website. And so gradually the digitizing of manuscripts began to happen. I registered Pibroch.net in January 2000, but it seemed clear that by that stage the Pibroch Society was going to do it. So I didn't bother with Pibroch.net. It took a slightly different path and it didn't quite have its meaning. So I sort of retired that site. It wasn't active. Then David got in touch, and we got into this place where we seemed to be in competition, and I was always uncomfortable about that and tried to, I think it doesn't make sense. We're so few. The music, it is a very niche topic, and I really want to work together. Collaboration for me is key, and there are different things here. So there are very different roles to play. And so one of the things we've been discussing is, how do we determine, what we're doing that's different from what the Pibroch Society site provides? How can we combine resources intelligently in a smart way, and increase the momentum of the society's objectives? I'm a member. I've been a member since, I think, 1995. So I'm passionately for what the Pibroch Society is trying to achieve. So that it's in the context of the Pibroch Society and its site that we've come up with our vision, mission, and objectives and values in order to complement that and be stronger together. Which maybe brings us to introduce our mission. And hopefully you've all seen it in the documents that were distributed. But rather than put it on screen as a share, I'm just going to read it out. Here's our draft mission: to make it easy for people to discover, learn, teach, and research Pibroch, dissolving barriers that limit understanding and access. Now, I'll just say that again. Our mission is to make it easy for people to discover, learn, teach, and research Pibroch, dissolving barriers that limit understanding and access. Now let's just initially discuss that, the four of us together, and then we'll open out to the wider group.
So I think, Barnaby, just an observation, because it may or may not be going through people's minds, but that mission statement, I was thinking about it today. Not only did we, certainly you and I and Josh, and I think probably Kate, bat around the earlier versions of that, which I think emerged, I'm guessing, autumn last year. But I think in a way that does a disservice to all the thought, the strands of thought that you've been involved in, all of us have been involved in, and indeed, I suppose the conversations with the likes of the Pibroch Society going back a long time. All of those strands have led to this statement. So it does have quite a history behind it, even if it's not necessarily very visible and obvious. That said, just to confirm what I think we're trying to do today, and it may be that we don't get much response today, but it's out there for people to discuss. We do want feedback on it, and also we're very happy to take questions on it today or any other time, because the questions may be ones we've already thought of, but perhaps equally much more importantly, there may be ones we haven't thought about. But I suppose thinking about organizations that succeed and succeed well, they all have a very clear and, I would argue, simple mission, and one that is absolutely the core of what they do, and that is always in the front, middle and back of the minds of the people working for it. I've
certainly found gathering together the notes from all the meetings. Pibroch Network operates by Zoom. I have about 4, if not 5 meetings a week. Zoom has, Josh has others. So we talk with different people and we gather that together, and we organize it, and we use Google Docs at the moment for ease of collaboration together with Zoom, in order to gather energy. And having the mission and the vision has made life so much easier, just in terms of focusing and channeling limited energy. So I'm certainly keen that we have these. And Barnaby, Lindsay's just put out a thought there, which Lindsay, is it all right if we bring Lindsay in, Barnaby? Absolutely. I am just, you should be able to unmute yourself, Lindsay, please.
Yes, I can unmute myself if
Thank you.
If I may say a word. Just my suggestion is to think very carefully about the nature of the language. My suggestion would be to say building pathways to facilitate understanding and extend access as rather more of a positive thing than dissolving barriers, which nobody denies exist. We know they exist, and we know that understanding and access is also somewhat limited. But to facilitate understanding, because once we get to one platform of understanding, then that opens up the possibility for the next level of understanding, and extending access until every single person on the planet is actively involved in Pibroch. Well, there's still something to do. So that would be my thought there, suggestion.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Yes.
I was just going to say, I think that's very helpful, and it's precisely kind of words. It's one could call it wordsmithing, but I think getting the words smithed correctly has a real importance. So thank you for that. I think we'll take that away and give it some thought, without a doubt.
Well, we can return to these during the meeting, but unless anyone else wants to talk or has a comment on that mission, I might invite Josh. Would you like to read out the vision?
Absolutely. I'll just say thanks again, Lindsay, for that. That's it's really good to be able to get further perspectives. And you're right. The mention of barriers, the mention of words like limit, limiting understanding, that can have connotations that might not be intended. And so having a very positive statement, having a positive perspective throughout is certainly what we're trying to do. So thanks very much for that. I'm sure that we can build that in. When it comes to the vision, and again, the idea has been to make these as succinct statements as possible. The vision we've come up with, the statement, is a world in which Pibroch features in mainstream education and performance, and is valued internationally for its positive contribution to cultural life and well-being. I'll run through that again. Our vision is a world in which Pibroch features in mainstream education and performance, and is valued internationally for its positive contribution to cultural life and well-being. So that extends, or will extend, once the website is fully up, or fully the new look website is fully up and running. We will see that extends into a number of different sort of sub-statements that go to articulate things further. But that is the wellspring of it all. And Barnaby, as I was saying earlier, we've been trying to make these statements succinct, but also very positive. We've been sort of editing our each other's language quite a bit, haven't we? In the time since I think July of 2021, it's been a process of mutual editing and support.
It has been a wonderfully collaborative time. I've enjoyed the kind of interaction and the conversations because we're all in different places. And Zoom, I only began, like most of us, I think, during the pandemic. It has enabled things. Enabled far-flung people to come together, and in fact it's made a vision like this a little bit more achievable, I think, because being valued internationally for a positive contribution to cultural life and well-being, that requires partnerships and engagements. And I think if there are 4 words that have been kind of up in the front of my mind, it's partnerships and engagements, outreach and impact. And because it's all too easy with something like Pibroch, it's not every single niche cultural activity, and I'm involved in several, medieval Welsh harp, playing the treble pipe, Sardinian lawnedus. They've all got their very small communities, and in a small community, there's a sense you are marginalized, and so you huddle together for safety. And it takes courage to take it out, to face the world and be proud of what you've got, and find ways of engaging that are meaningful for you. You're not dumbing yourself down, but you are reaching people. So how to do that? And it's so important.
Yeah, and of course, one of the main values that we've been trying to cultivate and to really foreground in our work so far is the idea of collaboration and inclusivity. The world is becoming more inclusive, and Pibroch can, of course, be part of that. It can very much take advantage of the zeitgeist of today, but it can be led by it. And I think it needs to be. What I like, Barnaby, about the idea of well-being, well, actually, no, I was going to say that one of the words that we might not have come across so far in our discussion today is competition. We're seeing a world, or we would like to see a world in which Pibroch features in mainstream education and in performance, but we're not saying competition. We're not leaving competition out, but we are trying to think beyond the competition platform. We are very much hoping to ensure that Highland Pipers and that competitors are very much part of the constituency that Pibroch Network can connect with, because that goes without saying, but of course I've said it anyway. But we do want to look beyond it as well and try to be as inclusive as possible. And speaking of well-being, I was looking at Delitha's message, which is fantastic. Going for an aromatherapy massage and hearing Pibroch in the background rather than New Age synth. I think that's a great world.
I think that also for an awful lot of people who play Pibroch and don't compete or don't feel comfortable about the competition world, we have to think, well, what is the function of this music today? What is its impact? What is its meaning? Why do we do it? What is its value to the larger community of people, both who do actively at the moment learn Pibroch, but also thinking ahead and to a wider, towards a few steps towards our vision down the line? What is going to be the function of Pibroch en route to this vision of it being more highly valued? And I have, with the European Music Archaeology Project, faced this question with people who do very unusual musical things, you know, connected with museums, and you have this question of why should we care? And with Pibroch, I think there are some really good reasons to care, and through Kate's approach and thinking about the website and, well, how do we make it meaningful to kids? You know, children all have to do school projects. They're going to sites like BBC Bite Size, used by, you know, 3/4 of children in the UK. Now, how can we get Pibroch to have a presence in mainstream resources like BBC Bite Size? And why would it be there? You know, why would a BBC commissioner in their education, in their learning departments, why would they want to have Pibroch? And if they don't want it, or they don't know about it, what can we do to make that more of a possibility in 10 years down the line? So that's, I think, where we're thinking, wanting to complement the current activities of the Pibroch Society. And maybe that's a point at which to move to our values, because together with our mission and vision, we've come up with a set of 4 values, and I like to think of them as pillars, or, you know, or the caliper. I found a wonderful picture of a Berlin when it has its mast, and I hadn't understood what does the word caliper mean. You know, it's yes, Urla, it means Urla, but there's a fabulous Pibroch Society proceedings transcription where he talks about Willie MacDonald, Ben Becula, says, yes, caliper. People say it's Urla, but it's not exactly Urla. And then he doesn't tell you how it's different from an Urla. But I've sort of figured it out, I think, from Joseph MacDonald's manuscript. And in the 17th century and 18th century, the mast had basically 4 ropes from the top of the mast holding it up, 2 to the front and 2 to the back. And you see them in the photos of the reconstructed galleys. These 4 ropes, those ropes are the caliper. It's the fixed rigging, and that's the definition you get in Dwelly. So we've got, as our caliper, the 4 ropes holding up our mast, enabling our galley to sail forwards towards our vision. We have openness, welcoming people and ideas. Reliability in our relationships and in our scholarship. Respect for others and for evidence. And gratitude showed towards our lineage and each other. And I must record my gratitude here to people who've helped us come up with that. Not least my wife Eleanor, who is a mindfulness teacher, and she there's an enormous amount of literature that sits beside our bed that I've been able to dip into. So this has benefited from that school of thinking, and how to operate in a culture that looks after people, that cares, and that opens out for Pibroch itself, a bit like, well, in academia, sometimes qualities of the heart are not cultivated, and it's all in the mind, and there are habits that perpetuate behaviors that we don't actually feel comfortable with. So we've put these values in order not to be tied to the past, in order to be able to set a course to fulfill, to accomplish our mission that's not lumbered with the habits that we've inherited. at the same time as being grateful for our lineage. And I think that's so important. There is a huge gratitude for every aspect of that lineage. And in piping, it's rich. My goodness, it's rich. It's one of the things that my supervisors here at the University of Cambridge emphasize with my thesis work. They look at the Pibroch materials and the prefatory pages of my thesis, and they say, my goodness, Barnaby, you've got so much. This is extraordinary. Most of the theses produced music at the Cambridge University Faculty of Music, they don't have anything like that much material. We have a richesse of material. So much to be grateful for.
Absolutely, Barnaby. I really like how the values weave into and support each other. You know, the idea that or the concept that you first mooted of the kalapa as something that can be that can describe or that can illustrate the values that underpin the Pibroch network, I think is really, really effective. I like the likening to the support ropes and the rigging going in for the Highland galleys, but it's principally about that interweaving between gratitude and lineage. It's the idea that we are pushing forward, and as I've said before, we're pushing outward. We want to go to extend beyond barriers or boundaries or limits, but not at the expense of what's come before, not at the expense of the countless souls and minds and efforts that have been put into place that have led to where we are. And I say we, the big we, our community. We are. It goes to the concept of roots, to lineage, to heritage. The idea that if we are going somewhere, then we have to know where we've come from. And so these values really support each other in a very powerful way.
Well,
and
look,
the idea of the kalapa actually illustrates that strength, and I think that's very effective.
Thank you. Well, look, I think it's time now to open out the conversation. So we're few enough, I think, that I'd ask you not to interrupt each other. Let's give each other space. If you would like to speak, please don't hesitate. Be courageous. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Barnaby, shall I say something? For those that don't know me, I'm John Frater, a Pibroch enthusiast for many years. And just to make a little bit of background, my Pibroch enthusiasm generates from my membership of the Royal Scottish Piper Society, in essence. It was just to say to you, Barnaby, when you talked about lumbered with the habits, again, avoid that negative thinking. The issue is the way things have been done may have served a purpose and may no longer be appropriate. That doesn't mean to say there were bad things. Yeah, there were. It was the way it was done. So, for example, look at the Pibroch Society. Pibroch Society initially started out with the aim of conserving and protecting things that might be lost. So we've done that. So it's time to move on. But it doesn't mean that the wrong thing, it doesn't mean that it wasn't the right way to do it, but now is the time to move on. Yes,
I'm completely in agreement, and I think I accept your observation that I must be careful, more aware with my language, and in fact, I was thinking there not about Pibroch specifically. I was thinking more about I've just been reading As a Woman, and our habits as men of interrupting interrupting the women just habitually, and we're all becoming, I think, increasingly aware of of those sorts of habits that are more societal. And I think within piping, I think within what I do and within what David was doing, we all carry habits. So I wasn't actually, yes, I think the openness that we're trying to embed in the values, we have to model that. I have to model that. All of us in the team have to model that. And we're not going to get it right straight away. We're on a learning path.
Oh, well, Barnaby, you always seem so positive about things that the positive approach should.
Thank you, John. I'm afraid you've frozen for me.
And for others, I think.
So let's continue. That was a very valuable point, though. Thank you. Any other thoughts on Talitha? Yes.
I was looking around the website. Congratulations. It's very nice and clean and easily navigable. I didn't notice any links to or mention of recordings of Pibroch. And I'm wondering if that was intentional or if that's something you're going to add. And in particular, I would be interested to have mention of the Clarsach tradition, which is linked, and also to fiddle Pibrochs. The fact that the body of music has been taken and used by other instruments. Yeah,
so here that's something that we've identified for our phase 3, improving the accessibility of the material. In other words, you mentioned for people who aren't pipers, if they're a fiddler and they're wanting to understand, to draw from this material what's relevant to them, they need to have a way in.
Yeah, exactly.
A way in for musicians who are, they may be fiddlers, they may be harpers, they may be historical harpers. So providing ways in. And so we've sort of, there's a top level division in our thinking between the curated pages and the community pages. And the community pages would be an opportunity for anybody and everybody to contribute resources which are they're moments in time. They can be little bulletins, they can be heavyweight articles, a wide range of material in the community area, so that whoever's interested can create a whole zone, and if it grows, then it can have its own branding, its own little corner. So it's a user-driven resource, and that will make it easier to I suppose develop that sense of ecology, a richer ecology of people who are connecting with the source material in very different ways.
Yeah. It just occurred to me that if somebody came to the site only having ever seen the word, and I mean, we can't assume that people are going to come with Pibroch in their ear already. People might have read it in a book and thinking, you know, what's this all about? They would want to hear it. They would want to be able to identify it. So I would put at the very top on the home page some sort of either a link to where you can go to hear it, or to have some oral representation of it.
Yes, I agree. And that's the joy of the web, and we're able not only to hear it but to see it, and so to see the pageantry of Pibroch and get that full. Yes, that is very important. And at the moment, I should explain that we haven't actually done any development on the site at all. We have simply inherited what David built. Okay, David built what you see at the moment. All we've done in phase 2 so far is managed to move it into a new web host, and we're in the process of rolling out new branding, and in fact we'll come to that in just a moment. the way in which there's a sort of constellation. It's a multi-site network at the moment, and each site looks very different. They don't hang together. It doesn't feel like a coherent, unified resource. So we've got fairly clear plans. A lot of our thought has gone into this. So we're going to do a sort of quick job, making it roughly okay, and fundraise over the next period in order to then do it properly. Okay, in order to consolidate, streamline, and improve user experience, making it implementing various digital technologies that are emerging, so that it can, so for the interoperability of the website with other resources, so that schools, researchers, anybody, visitors who arrive at a place, going onto Google Maps, automatically up will come the local places relevant to Pibroch. Maybe a tune was the title of a Pibroch relates to that place, and or the person who composed it learnt or lived near that place. These things would come up in something like Google Maps. And that would then take them a permalink, something we need to avoid link rot. One of the reasons that you don't at the moment access audio is because when Topper & Turges renewed their website, they altered the URLs in such a way that hundreds of links that David Hester had put in on every single tune page became dead. This problem of link rot is a serious one, and we want to make sure that our digital know-how and practices and policies are such that we minimize the prospect of link rot, and the interoperability with mainstream resources is as good as possible. I wonder whether I could invite Kate just to oh, maybe I have it actually. I'll do a little screen share to introduce our branding, and and then we'll open out to final questions. So I'm going to share my screen with the very latest Pibroch network branding. Kate, would you like to just talk us through this a little?
Sure. I have to warn in advance, there's some fireworks going on outside my flat, so apologies if there's any background noise. So yes, this is the proposed new Pibroch Network logo. It might be temporary, kind of, as you mentioned about fundraising down the line, there might be a larger overhaul that comes with. So the logo sits with a typical grace note from piping music on this flag taken from sort of traditional art that Barnaby found. And we've got what are called fab icons to sit on different pages within the Pibroch Network website. It's
in Iona Abbey. It's one of the gravestones, that's a 14th century gravestone that has that shape of banner on the mast.
Yes, that's the reference, thank you. Yes, so then on different sections of the Pibroch Network website, there will be these different fab icons. It's the same grace note shape, but on a different color, so that you'll be able to easily see where you are on the website, and gives another cue to help with navigation. And then we've got the social media avatar version as well, sitting on top of some Cantra. And the colors are taken from sort of traditional Scottish wool colors, so you know, heathers and burgundies and greens and things like that.
Thank you very much, Kate. Well, it's time for us to open out now, and we have 10 minutes or so for any ideas, suggestions, questions that anybody has.
Barnaby, I love that branding there. It looks really good, and I'm quite excited by the whole project itself. I think it's fantastic. And I don't really have any questions just now. They'll probably arise as we progress over the next couple of months, but I've just got a few thoughts. It's I know it's quite early, but the idea of getting, what was it, 11 to 13-year-olds knowledgeable about this music, that's quite a thing, and how would actually go about tangibly to do that. Another thing would be that came to my mind as I was listening to you is competition. You've approached the CPA and People Society, etc., etc. But I think most people on here would probably agree that the competition system has damaged the music. Where do we fit into that? I would suggest nowhere. And there's another thing would be the function of this music that you touched on earlier. What is the function anymore? Well, the music isn't. It's long gone since this music it had an actual function. It is purely, it's become performance, really. Is that the avenue that we could possibly go down as well?
What a great set of questions there and ideas, Stuart. That's very powerful. And I'll just come back to you with two thoughts. Firstly, 11 to 13-year-olds, Kate came up with something that I just thought was amazing. And I don't think she had any idea, she was thinking in a totally different. So this is important. The lovely thing about coming together in a creative space and just not knowing what's going to come out. These are the unintended outcomes of collaboration, and about getting different perspectives and different voices around the table. I think cultivating that approach without knowing, this is real research. Get some interesting people, diverse perspectives around the table, particularly people from outside piping like Kate. Okay, I've learned. Get people from outside the bubble, whichever bubble it is, and exciting things start to happen because you've got one foot out, one foot in, and you begin to see things in different ways. Kate came up with this idea about a kind of play park thing where there are logs or tiles and you jump from one tile to the next, but the spaces between the tiles on the museum floor or the logs in the play park, the spaces reflect Pibroch rhythm. And so in an urlar, you've got large spaces and tiny little spaces. And then as you progress towards the doubling, they become more regular. And of course, with the more regular spaces, you're able to go faster. It's just a simple way of enabling people to experience a Pibroch without having to play an instrument. that maybe for even younger children, that's appropriate for toddlers. I just thought
that's quite good. That
and how you could get kids in a primary school or in aged 11 making that and installing it in their local area in some beautiful secluded place, and then it could have maybe a little blue plaque, a little blue plaque with a QR code, and it could be logged into your Visit Scotland, as a local attraction, a little bit off the beaten track, and it's maybe connected with a piece of music that has a story, and you get the local organizations to understand, some event every year, and that way you start engaging with communities and the imagination of people in those communities. And they're not just in Scotland, because we have Pibrochs that relate to Ireland, England, and abroad.
I don't think we have any Pibroch computer games for kids on Xbox, but that might be another avenue. Why not?
Why not, indeed?
Not yet.
Any other?
Could I maybe say a couple of things?
Please, Lindsay.
I think there's a thing with that question of the word internationally. There's a tremendous problem within the UK itself with divide between parts of society, and there are plenty of groups who are simply not talking to each other. And they're actually really in a much too antagonistic relationship with each other. And perhaps universally is a safer word, because Internationally implies that we should somehow build a border and then cross it. Yet the borders are not national borders; the borders are inside of nation borders. Speaking as someone sitting far away, and of course your own time in sunnier climes, you know that piping is far too universal to try to reduce us to some kind of a national tradition. That's a suggestion, and there's something else I would like to say, if I may.
Please.
As Kate was showing her circle, I had a sudden thought that came to mind, which might sound a little bit mad, but it was a sudden thought. You know, the idea of a total artwork, a Gesamtkunstwerk, which links graphics, links something like dance or mime, links piping, can have more than one instrument in the whole thing, which puts music into a physical space as well, which as a kind of an art installation, or as a happening, however we want to look at that, is a potentially really interesting way to be able to involve people of all ages to explore a physical space. Now, why not take over an entire gallery and flood the place with Pibroch, but flood it with Pibroch that's not necessarily where every room or every part of the room is competing against each other. We could actually do things in such a way as it's one big Pibroch takes over an entire art gallery. And imagine the effect that could have on your average 12-year-old who is walking into a place with an open mind. That could be really quite exciting. And it could, the variations could extend through all kinds of variations, from traditional variations to computer game variations to all kinds of visual variations as well. As a way of bringing something to life in a completely different way. So, a Gesamtkunstwerk would be my provocation, following on from Kate's representation, which I think is a very, very interesting. The first thing that I saw there was something that came out of my PhD, was the concept of musical relativity, that a piece of music is not its immediate linear moment of expression, but it's a collection of the whole thing. It just happens to be expressed in a linear manner, and geographic representation actually really nicely makes it possible to see that, circles within circles, where a piece of music is understood not in a linear manner. It's understood after the event in its full meaning. So I think that's just a random, slightly mad thing to say that
It's
might be
vibrant.
provocative, but
It's a vibrant provocation, Lindsay. Thank you. Not random, and I think these are the things we want, bringing together minds. So I'm looking forward to. There will be more webinars like this, where these conversations can begin to kind of focus, and we can have more sustained creative spaces where in safety these ideas can emerge. I mean, what we do with children, we do have a draft series of think tanks, or number of think tanks and webinars that are sort of shaping up, that we'll be discussing down the line. And one of those is what you describe, what you do with the community in a space, and how to get people participating creatively in ways that they feel fully engaged and energized and enthused. And it's very possible. And I think the relevance of Pibroch can be much, much, much bigger than any of us have imagined yet. And we, as seeing the Pibroch network as a place of research. Yes, we're not doing what is known, what is safe. We're pushing those boundaries gently and respectfully, and with huge gratitude. We're exploring the unknown. We're entering into territory that has not been trodden before. We're trying to do things in ways that reach out and enliven not a national sense of property, but treating it as music that is a global inheritance. It belongs to everybody, and heavens. If there's one thing my own research has taught me, it's that Pibroch is international, because it draws from a lot from Versailles, French Baroque music, a lot from English lute music, a lot from Welsh. Well, it certainly has strong parallels with Welsh harp music, and so treating it as something that is a much more interconnected in the ecology of music history and society, because it enables us to connect with history, deep history, and bring that alive too. So it's bringing alive all sorts of things.
Absolutely, Barnaby. You're I love what you're saying. It's music to my ears. I find that over the years, when I've explained this music simply, because it is simple, it's not esoteric. When you've got an audience of people that just don't know about this music, and you think, why do you not know about this music? You should know about this music. It's your music. And you say to whether it's children or whatever, and you tell them the story behind the tune and things like that. And then you play the tune, you explain it to them before you play it, and it blows their head off. You think, this is a disgrace that you don't know this. I remember 20 years ago speaking to Ishbel McCaskill, the Gaelic singer, and she said at the time, we Gaels, and I think she was from Lewis or Harris, I can't remember, says, we don't really get this music that you're playing. And it's because the music that I was playing then was Kildare Book of Kilmore, which is just divorced from Gaelic culture, really. I'm maybe a wee bit too strong with that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Well, I think we should be celebrating the diversity, and I want to be clear that with Pibroch Network we are totally inclusive. This is a website for absolutely everybody, and that does definitely mean that we are very aware of not denigrating any of the groups, any of the sectors within the Pibroch world. And I think that so that's where I'm thinking about not holding on to the baggage of the past, because it's very easy to perpetuate those habits of talking, and we all do it. Okay, we're all human beings, we're all biased. It's the nature of the beast. But we recent years we've become more aware, societally, globally, and so that helps us. I think it's a benefit to our niche community, enabling us to reconfigure how we operate, and it makes it possible to set this vision up, and it's far away. Yeah, we know it's far away. We can start, together, collaboratively, we can move slowly towards it. And I want to end by thanking everyone who's come tonight. And if you would like to continue the conversation, whether it's by email, and if you're listening afterwards online, and you have any ideas, please, you can leave them in the comment on the page below, or you can send an email to barnaby@pibroch.net or josh@pibroch.net, or you can come along to one of our webinars, and the program will be announced as we gradually raise, alter, transform the legacy that the digital legacy that we've received from David Hester and all those who gave. We're talking here about a collective legacy that includes Kilberry. I think it's important to say that the database on which, the research on which our website is built goes back to the Kilberry files that he had in his filing cabinet preparing the Pibroch Society collection. And it's from, and that goes back to General Thomason, but it was Kilberry who was rigorous, and that rigor was then carried on by Franz Bausmann and by Roderick Cannon, and they further honed and developed the databases, the concordance tables, the understanding of which, all this source material that we have, it's a mass of it, it's a total chaos, complete heterogeneous, fertile, creative soup, okay? And what's been happening over the course of the 20th century is gradually kind of being able to navigate it. And so that's what our website seeks to do, refining, building on the work of Kilberry, Franz Bausmann, Roderick Cannon, William Donaldson, all these tables, and that's why we have the People's Society numbers. So every set of variants has a unique People's Society number, and it's this is where the scholarship, so respect and reliability in the scholarship. So we're trying to do many things, and progress will be slow, but we hope strong. Thank you, everybody.
Well done. Well done.
We'll see you, those of you who can make it on Wednesday, but otherwise I look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.